this is what Douglas Murray has been saying, and he's in trouble over in the UK. They're trying to cancel him yet again. I mean, truly, there's no more courageous, effective truth teller in the world than Douglas Murray. He's my number one. I listen to him with bated breath. I try not to breathe. I try not to let my stomach growl. I just listen. Like, I have to take every word of this in. Everything he says is so spot on. And one of the things he was saying was that if this really were about their heartstrings being pulled for the poor Palestinians, we would see protests everywhere. We'd see protests in Yemen. We'd see protests in China, where they're undertaking a genocide against Muslim Uyghurs. None of it. It's
Lebanon,
over and over, it's about Jews. And they'll find a different reason to tell us that we need to hate the Jews and the Jews are bad, depending on the news cycle. But he has seen through that, and he's also been very critical of the UK immigration policy. And so now his haters are trying to blame what's happening in the UK streets on him. We can get into that in more detail.
Yeah, I think that what they're doing to Douglas Murray is indicative of how afraid they are of his arguments. His book that came out, I think it's several years ago now, he's getting in trouble for a book that predicted the problems that Britain was going to go through. And so him being kind of a fortune teller of where things were going to go, which I think was obvious to a lot of, right-thinking people, has gotten him into trouble. And we're going back to our first conversation on the show where, they don't have the kind of free speech protections that we do. So a book written several years ago inciting violence today is something that potentially makes sense to the British left. And that's terrifying. And look, Douglas Murray's ours now. They can't have him anymore. I think we should make him American as quick as possible.
Yes, maybe that's Donald Trump, the first thing he should do.
He should. That's exactly right. He was making the point, and we're going to get into this a little bit in more detail later this week, but he was making the point in an interview a few years back and promoting the book that he's sick and tired of these protesters coming to the UK or to America only to tell us how much they hate our guts and how shitty our countries are and how they want us to, I guess, obey Sharia law. They do actually say that in some of these protests. And he, in the perfectly indignant Douglas Murray tone, took on that, among other points. I'll just play you a little. Here's Sod 18.
I don't want them to live here. I don't want them here. They came under false pretenses. Many of them came illegally and continue to come illegally. And we don't want them here. And I'm perfectly willing to say that because it needs to be said. If I hated Australia, hated the Australian people, hated Australian history, hated the Australian way of life, broke into the country illegally and spent my time trying to undermine Australia, why should I be in Australia? Why? What would I have brought the country? What benefit? What moral benefit? What financial benefit? What social benefit? The answer is you'd have brought no benefit. So why just hope that those people are not in large enough numbers and keep your fingers crossed and put it off for another day? I think we have to start saying very clearly, if you don't like it here, go. And if you don't like it here and you intend to make it worse, we will make you go.
Yes.
Preach. So sane. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, the same with all these campus protesters here on visas.
Yes.
That's it.
So Douglas Murray is a threat because he's such an effective truth teller, and he just keeps saying more truths, which bother the leftists. But he's putting his thumb on exactly the right problem, because it's not just a UK problem. It's absolutely a problem here. That's the guy we need making our case over on the right for the reason why we can't have 4 more years of Kamala Harris. We need those points being made, Bethany. It's like, this is my frustration with Trump. When I hear him do the rambling wind up and it's fine, Peter Navarro's right. The red meat for the base is entertaining, but they're with him. They're with him. You need those kinds of arguments being made about how what a terrible position we've all been put in because of our open border, and how now things are going to get more explosive. We just saw a woman get raped at gunpoint this week in New York in front of her spouse or fiance. We're going to have more just like it if we continue these open border policies, and her statements now that she's some sort of a border hawk are not to be believed.
Yeah, I thought that one of the best portions of the space last night with Elon Musk was when Trump talked about October 7th, and he said, that can happen here. And I think that that's a lot of why Americans are not paying attention to the fact that Americans are being held in Gaza, because we think that we're somehow immune. We're not immune. We have people coming over the border who are threats to national security, who want to commit another 10-7 here. September 11th was history for a lot of people, but there are a lot of voters who remember that day and they'll never forget it. And we need to put on our go back machine and remember those moments, remember that feeling, because we can have that here. And if we continue these open border policies, we're absolutely going to see a replay of October 7th here.
Not only has she been pretty squishy on Israel and this whole conflict, but she chooses Tim Walz. And in the news this week is the fact that he's apparently pretty tight with this guy in Minnesota. Hold on, I want to make sure I get his name correct. Imam Assad Zaman. He is a, quote, Hitler-promoting imam, according to the DC Examiner, a master teacher, according to Tim Walz, and he offered Tim Walz lessons over some period of time. Tim Walz admits they, quote, spent time together, in which he was giving Tim Walz some sort of lessons. And this is a guy who is apparently a big fan of Adolf Hitler, and Walz has appeared with him several times. He's a local Muslim leader in Minnesota. He has justified Hamas terrorist violence, reading here from a Breitbart piece, which is quoting the Washington Examiner. And this pro-Hitler thing is because he shared a film on social media that is some 6 hours long and just kind of reimagines Hitler as just, I guess in the way Tim Walz reimagines socialism as something that's just neighborly. It reimagines Hitler as just something who's like some guy who's kind of avuncular. I don't know, Karol, but every day we get a new piece of info that doesn't suggest is going to be a very particularly friendly administration toward our friends in Israel.
Well, that's, I feel like, absolutely right. And Trump hit the Israel point several times last night in a bunch of different ways. I mean, as you said, he tied it to the border. He talked about the fact that if he was president, he doesn't think October 7th would have happened, et cetera. I think it's on his mind in a way that I think that with the Democratic ticket, it's on their mind as like, how much can we minimize this so that we don't get in trouble talking about it? And this is the kind of thing with the Tim Walz and this Imam. These are the people that they're openly courting, and you can't deny that those are the people who are going to be disrupting the convention. I think that that's exactly where they're afraid to go, and they're afraid to talk about this topic, so they end up, having these crazies in the party, in the tent, interrupting them and screaming at them. Now, of course, the media has been papering over these interruptions and, oh, Kamala, isn't she so, just so cool in the way that she shuts them down? But I'm going to have a hard time seeing her shut down a lot of them. And that's going to be a much tougher thing for the media to cover up. So I think that we're in a situation where a lot of the policies that they're pushing are specifically tied to not having these conversations.
Here's Tim Walz speaking about this Imam, Bethany. He's on camera, 15.
First of all, say thank you to Imam. I am a teacher, so when I see a master teacher, I know it. And over the time we've spent together, one of the things I've had the privilege of is seeing the things in life through the eye of a master teacher to try and get the understanding.
So he's a big fan of this guy who, for the record, this Imam, after a one-party leader in Minnesota posted on 10/7 that he was beyond heartbroken to see what happened in Israel and that he knew some of the people and they were brutally killed or kidnapped. This guy responded that the person expressing the sympathy and his group cannot be joined at the hip to apartheid Israel and still hope to count the Muslim vote. That was in response to a 10/7 post that was expressing sadness for what had happened. This is exactly the kind of thing that used to be able to ruin an entire campaign. But when you have all of the media running cover for you, it's fine. He won't even be asked about it. That's the overwhelming likelihood here.
So it's funny because Gabe Kaminsky at the Washington Examiner uncovered this stuff within a week and a half since he was named the vice presidential nominee. So my question is, was he vetted? If he was, and this was found, and they decided to run with him anyway, that's terrifying. My suspicion is they thought that they were going to go with Josh Shapiro until there was such a insurrection within the Democratic Party that God forbid they choose someone with the last name Shapiro, that they pivoted at the last minute to Walz, and they didn't do their research. The fact that they didn't choose Shapiro when the reality is a lot of his policies and public statements about Israel mirrored that of Walz is because he's Jewish. There is a real fundamental problem within the Democratic Party.
Are you ready to transform your nights and elevate your days? Discover the unparalleled comfort and luxury of Cozy Earth. I love Cozy Earth. I love their bamboo sheet set and their towels and their loungewear. Their sheet set's made with premium viscose from bamboo, and these sheets are incredibly soft, and they get softer with every wash. And their breathability, unmatched. They keep you cool all night, every night, which gives you a better day the next day. But that's not all. Cozy Earth's bath collection is a game changer, especially the Luxe bath sheets. These towels, crafted with a unique blend of cotton and bamboo viscose, using innovative technology, are impossibly soft and plush. Quality and durability are at the heart of Cozy Earth. And with a 10-year guarantee, Cozy Earth products are built to last. Upgrade your nights, transform your days with Cozy Earth. Just go to CozyEarth.com/Megyn and use code Megyn for up to 40% off your order. CozyEarth.com/MEGYN for up to 40% off. Mention you heard about Cozy Earth on our show, and they're going to send you a pair of free socks. How do you like them apples? Check it out. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.